Some of us will always have disadvantages, but I notice one art where the disadvantaged earn world recognition regardless. I'd like to go over a few examples.
Back in the days,
specifically the 17 to 1800s, there was a man named Ludwig van Beethoven, and at 9 he started piano lessons. His teacher said he would be the next Mozart. I know that name scares the hose nowadays, but Beethoven is to Mozart as The Weeknd is to Michael Jackson. Except Beethoven's better than Mozart. You could say that he was the best thing since sliced bread if it weren't for the fact that sliced bread wouldn't be invented for another 150 years. At 16, old Ludwig van's mother died, and his abusive alcoholic father realized that if he just stopped working, he would have way more time to drink. So Ludwig became the breadwinner, performing piano, composing symphonies, and other gangster activities. For unknown reasons, at 28 he began to lose his hearing. He wrote a letter to his brothers saying that he wanted to kill himself in a video game, but that he wouldn't because he felt a responsibility to keep dropping super hot fire. His hearing loss began with higher frequencies, and he also developed tinnitus, which made him hear a constant ringing. If you took him to a concert, it would sound something like this to him. So he started composing pieces like Moonlight Sonata that were in a lower register. By 45, he was completely deaf. Fortunately, he had perfect pitch, so he just imagined the instruments playing in his head while still pushing the boundaries of how long and complicated a symphony can be and how large an orchestra can be. One might assume the quality would drop off when he became completely unable to hear the music he was writing, but he continued to drop certified hood classics. Then he died of liver disease. You know who else died of liver disease? My mom, and Ray Charles Robinson was born in 1930. His mother was an orphan who was adopted by a married couple at 12. Appropriately for the setting, Charles's father was the married man who adopted Charles's soon-to-be mother and knocked her up at a whopping 15 years young. He was largely absent from Ray's life. His family was all the way poor, even for blacks in the Deep South. If they had $1 for every time they didn't have $1, they might be able to pay off some of their debt. At 5, Charles's 4-year-old brother fell into a soapy wash bucket in the yard. He tried to pull his brother out, but he failed and his brother drowned. While still 5, Ray began losing his eyesight to glaucoma. By 7, if you showed him this picture, it would look something like this to him. Ray's mother made him practice remembering where things are in a room to get around. She was seen as brutal and cruel by neighbors as she continued to make Ray do work like chopping wood and washing clothes. But Ray cites this as the reason for his success and independence. She managed to get him enrolled in a school for the deaf and blind in Florida, where he received formal piano lessons. But as he puts it, he was born with music in him. From the moment he learned there were piano keys to be mashed, he started mashing them. At 14, his mother died, and as a poor, blind, orphaned black teen in the Deep South in the 40s, Ray Charles understandably wanted to run as far away as possible. So he went all the way to Seattle, Washington. He moved around a bunch trying to get his music career off the ground, and he eventually proved himself to the point that he became the first black artist that a major label granted creative control. In the 50s, he decided that blues, jazz, R&B, and gospel all weren't good enough, so he invented soul music. This made some Christians angry because he was blending religious and secular music and profiting off it, but anyone who wasn't stupid didn't care because it sounded dope. Ray Charles may not have had that many chart-topping singles, but he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Frank Sinatra called him the only true genius in the music industry, and he was widely regarded as the genius. He also had a biopic made about his life starring Jamie Foxx, who earned an Academy Award for his performance. And he has writing credits on the world's second most infamous anti-Semite's biggest hit song. Aside from music, Ray also has 12 kids with 10 different women because he has that blind dog in him. He was also a heroin enjoyer. He even got Quincy Jones into it for 5 months. For those who don't know, Michael Jackson used to record demos of just his voice, which Quincy Jones would produce into actual songs. Also, he has the 3rd most Grammys of anyone in the world. Quincy's clearly a man of some power, proving that Ray Charles is formidable at getting people into heroin, which I find just as, if not more impressive than his 17 Grammys. At 34, he got arrested for having that delightful skag on him, but kicked it in a rehab clinic. He continued to get his drink and smoke on until 73, when he moved far away to a big farm where he can run and play with all the animals forever. You know who else was a poor blind black man who could play multiple instruments, has had global success, and is known for playing the piano while singing? Aside from the obvious answer of my mom, in 1950, named Stevland Hardaway Judkins. He was premature, and the whack oxygen they were serving gave him retrolental fibroplasia. In other words, he's blind as hell. He was sheltered when he was young by his mother. Apparently, he wasn't born with music in him like Ray Charles was, because people who write about him like to paint the narrative that being trapped inside and listening to the radio is what made him love music. He would be given the name Stevie Wonder by Berry Gordy, a music producer whose power rivals that of 5-month heroin enjoyer Quincy Jones. You're probably saying, of course I know Stevie Wonder. He's the very superstitious guy. He plays the piano. I think I saw him play the harmonica a couple times. You don't understand. Stevie got his start when he was 9, and his mom took him to Motown Records to play drums for the Temptations, who were the Backstreet Boys of the 60s. Oh, you didn't know Stevie Wonder played the drums? Stevie's wondering why you're ignorant of him being a savant. He can play every instrument, and he does on many of his songs. Except he kind of stays away from the guitar. Him and Ray Charles sort of have a thing against guitars because it's associated with poor blind beggars. Here's a list of artists Stevie Wonder has produced and or played for. The Four Tops, The Spinners, The Supremes, Jimi Hendrix, B.J. Thomas, Billy Preston, and the Pointer Sisters. Maybe you don't know any of these old names. Well, Stevie Wonder was on Astroworld. He was featured on a Corday song last year. Stevie Wonder is so talented that Ray Charles covered one of his songs. Eric Clapton said that Stevie Wonder has to be the greatest drummer of our time. If you don't know who Eric Clapton is, he plays lead guitar on the most popular song ever made that has guitar in the title. Stevie was also inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and has 23 Grammys, which puts him in 7th place for having the most, but it's actually 3rd if we only include artists anyone's ever heard of. There is one popular conspiracy theory to be addressed.
Stevie can see. Stevie can see. It's just an act.
He can see?
No, Stevie Wonder is blind. He cannot see. Well then, why did he take a picture of Michael Jackson? He's joking around. How did he catch that mic stand? Paul McCartney just ran in front of him. You can feel and hear when someone runs past you. Maybe you can even hear them bump their head on a microphone. You people are being silly, but not as silly as this guy dances.
I always wanted to sing like Ray Charles. That was my guy. I thought he had the best voice. And we were all trying to sound like Ray Charles. The only guy who even got close was Joe Cocker.
Legendary musician, widely respected for his unique voice and stage presence. He moves this way on stage because since birth he has had no disability? Then why is he schmoovin' like that? Whatever, who cares about Joe Cocker? His best song's a Beatles cover. He's not even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He only has 1 Grammy. He doesn't even have a disability. Let's move on. It's 1983. A rock band called Def Leppard exists, and they released their highest charting single at the time, Photograph, which peaked at number 12. But what was holding them back from breaking into the Billboard Top 10 like their contemporaries The Police, Van Halen, and Journey? Their drummer's left arm. In 1984, drummer Rick Allen bought a newly released C4 Corvette. He lost control of the car, careening off-road, breaking his right arm and losing his left.
The weirdest thing was when me and Steve went to visit him in hospital. He was all bandaged up still, on medication. And we walked in and he went, "Hi," as though nothing had happened. And we went, we're going, "Oh, he's delirious, the boy's sick," you know. He'd been practicing on the edge of the bed with a pillow. He said, "Well, I've lost my left arm, so I'm going to use my left foot and left leg," you know, which really seems logical. And that's exactly what he did.
The band made no effort to replace Rick Allen, and Def Leppard only became more successful after the accident. You may have heard their biggest song. And Def Leppard is still touring with Rick Allen as their drummer. Rick Allen is also a painter. He made this masterpiece when he was 5 years old. His paintings are going for tens of thousands of dollars, and he's been donating proceeds to wounded warriors. And he runs the Raven Drum Foundation with his wife Lauren Monroe, who's been helping him through his PTSD. Oh, and Def Leppard were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I figure you probably could have guessed that. I could go on for a heaping helping of a long time with people like Puerto Rican musician Jose Feliciano, who's blind from birth, Brian Wilson, the leader of the Beach Boys, who's deaf in one ear, probably from being hit by his father as a child, or baby-making music icon Teddy Pendergrass, who became paralyzed from the chest down after a car accident in 1982. But I want to make some space to talk about mental disorders. There's of course the blues, the original genre for clinical depression fans.
Gonna climb a mountain, the highest mountain. I'll jump off, nobody gonna know.
Although it wasn't always the case, hip-hop has become a genre that often addresses mental health. Even artists like Drake, who are known for feeling good, sometimes don't. This could all be traced back to the first socially conscious rap song, The Message, which addresses the ever-present issues of poverty that disproportionately affect various minority groups, leads to trauma, and encourages criminality.
You say I'm cool, huh? I'm no fool. Then you wind up dropping out of high school.
Perhaps the first name that comes to mind when it comes to mental health and hip-hop is Kid Cudi, whose first words most people heard from him were,
Day and night, I toss and turn, I keep stressing my mind. I look peace to see, I don't attain.
It's no wonder he would later spend a period in rehab for depression and suicidal thoughts. Of even more note is the frequent Cudi collaborator known for not taking his meds because he claims they limit the quality of his music, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, who went so far as to put the text, "I hate being bipolar, it's awesome," on an album cover, and the text "White Lives Matter" on a t-shirt. While it has been beautifully expressed through his music many times throughout the years, I'm sure we all know at this point that Ye has some serious mental health challenges he needs to work on.
I just told you who I thought I was, a god.
About slavery for 400 years. For 400 years, that sounds like a choice.
I could say anti-Semitic things and Adidas can't drop me.
Speaking of Ye, Logic, who has spoken extensively about his struggles with anxiety and depression, took the world by storm with his song which was named after the phone number for the suicide prevention hotline.
Who can relate? Ooh.
3 songs previously on the same album, featured artist Juicy J had this to say on the topic of suicide.
Kill your motherfucking self, nigga. Kill your motherfucking self, nigga.
To address a half as corny but twice as white rapper, Marshall Mathers was called more methodical than any other artist by Rick Rubin, a music legend whose skills do not include rapping, singing, writing, playing any instruments, or producing.
I have no technical ability, and I know nothing about music.
Who could have guessed that the person who once said syllable skillaholic kill 'em all with this flippity dippity hippity hip hop, you don't really want to get into a piss and match with this rappity rap packing a mac in the back of the yak, rap crap yap yap yakety yak, is an autistic man with a special interest in rapping. He talks about his neurodivergence on the song Legacy, and it has proven to be a benefit to him since all of these rappers have put Eminem in their top 5 rappers list. Lil Yachty, Big Sean, Jack Harlow, Tech Nine, Earl Sweatshirt, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, and Jay-Z. Mentally ill musician Lightning Round, Adam Levine, Amy Winehouse, Billie Eilish, Bruce Springsteen, Cher, Demi Lovato, Ed Sheeran, Frank Sinatra, Gary Belafonte, Janet Jackson, Jimi Hendrix, John Lennon, Justin Timberlake, Katy Perry, Kurt Cobain, Lady Gaga, Mariah Carey, Miley Cyrus, Pink, Syd Barrett, will.i.am. The point is, just because there's something holding you back, and even if it feels like you've been dealt a bad hand, it doesn't mean you can't achieve your dreams. You could even become one of the world's greatest in whatever field you pursue. And if you want to help me achieve my dreams, you could subscribe, hit the bell icon, like, share the video. You could also leave a comment with a video suggestion, but it is not going to affect the next video as that will be a parody of Theo Von's podcast.